You can never claim that you have the truth. Your life is limited or paused by death. So you are not eternal. You are not beyond time and place. So you can never claim that I have the last truth. Only you can say you are in the flow of truth.
Farhad Mazhar, a philosopher, writer, and a tireless advocate for popular sovereignty. For decades, his thoughts on mass uprisings and state formation have steered millions of freedom-seeking souls across Bangladesh, Nepal, and beyond.
The real binary globally is very simple. It's capital and the people. So the false God, which is the capital, must go. And the real spirituality must be reestablished in the heart of the people. And that's the message of Islam.
Why is the synthesis of Marx's dialectical materialism and the spiritual traditions of Ruhaniyat essential for uniting the oppressed Muslims of the subcontinent in their struggle to establish a just society?
Islam does not approve any form of nationalism. We are all suffering from the fascism of Sheikh Hasina. So we have to remain united. And that unity, we can build it only by dissolving the binaries between the religion and, for example, secularism.
How can an uprising ascend beyond rage, beyond grievance, to become a revolution, a luminous birth of a new world?
If we are really serious in changing your society, education and culture is the most important area of politics. And political movement is a fantastic way of educating the people. So we must transform the insurgency into the popular revolution so that popular sovereignty can be established, and on the basis of the popular sovereignty, we can design a new democratic Bangladesh.
I'm your host, Sakib Pratyay, and today we explore the urgent necessity and method of building a state that stands with the people, life, and nature by harnessing the constituent power of popular sovereignty.
Farhad bhai, thank you so much for giving us time. Good to yeah. First, I would like to know your background a little bit. Can you tell me about yourself? Where you started your journey and where do you see yourself now?
Okay, it's very difficult for me to for example, describe myself. First of all, I think myself as a kind of literary person.
Yes.
And as someone who tried to think critically. That is the area which I feel very comfortable with. And usually it is directed to solving the very practical problems of life.
Pragmatic.
I don't like to use the word pragmatic because pragmatism it reduces the value of imagination, say, for example.
I see.
The value of, for example, other faculties of human being. So I don't like the word pragmatism. But of course, I do believe in achieving something through practical activities. So to me, intellectual activity is a very important form of practical activity. Okay? And I don't make so-called very presupposed separation between theory and practice. So I think the theory is also practice and practice is also theory. So that's what my philosophy is. So from childhood, I used to write poems mainly. Of course, my interest was in literature. So I grew up as a poet. I grew up on my initial recognition in Bangladesh was actually in the poetry. And soon I got interested in other areas as well, because I was always interested in politics and I was very activist. So especially after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, so I started contemplating what went wrong, especially the way we read Marx. What went wrong? The way we read Marx. Something must have gone wrong. Okay. So, and that actually brought me more deeper into intellectual area, into sphere. That means I thought that intellectual activity is very, very important. And then I came to a conclusion that so-called Marxism, and which I was familiar with, was coming from the West. There is some serious problem in it. So that is not really applicable in our country like Bangladesh. Not applicable just like something as if you are importing Coca-Cola and just you sit down and drink it. It's not like that.
It's not a plug and play solution.
In our West, it's a plug and play solution. So I had to read fairly carefully, very critically, and then I started applying my ideas with regard to, let's say, my religion, Islam, I started to critically think about what are the issues of my society and how to for resolve the issues not only from very classical Marxist point of view as a class question, but also as a cultural question, also as a theological questions, also as a environmental questions and ecological questions, and many different approaches I like to I approach to solve the real practical problem. So that has perhaps given me a kind of a leverage in Bangladesh that I been able to reach. I think I may be completely wrong. Able to reach the younger people, and they thought something I'm saying or something I'm writing is important and is relevant. And then I was very active in the anti-Asian movement, and afterwards I was quite closely tried to work with BNP because I thought that BNP may have certain very positive political ideology or ideas.
They're the centrist party.
Yeah, the centrist party. But I thought that we are not actually at the phase of, for example, asking for socialist transformations. I thought that our main task is right now is a kind of democratic transformation. Okay, a kind of democratic transformation which is very much, parallel with some of the Islamic values. Say the dignity of the human being, freedom. Okay, defending the rights of the oppressed. So these are all at the same time Islamic values. So I saw that what are the parallel between the Islamic values and also the democratic values. And I wanted to focus on those values where they really come up. And that how I try to reach my community, my people, what I call my people. When they think in terms of Islam, they think in terms of theology, they think in terms of their culture as well, of course. Okay, so many in different ways. So I try to reach them. So if when I intended that I must reach them, so I had to, for example, change my language. I had to rethink many of the ideas which I had before and try to translate these things in a way so that I could convince my community. Okay, I could develop a better communication. And perhaps that has helped me now as you are coming here and asking me to express what
So
is my.
would you say Marx has a great influence on you, the
Marx
ideology?
has always, Marx has been a very direct influence on me, and he's still Marxist with me all the time. But I'm not a Marxist in a very traditional sense, because obviously I learned from young Marx the value of critique. Okay, the critique is it's really philosophically rich notion. That means any thought you must appropriate critically, not you must not copy it. So when you critically appropriate a thought, you also not only you appropriate the thought, you at the same time go through a certain kind of transformations of your own ideas.
Yes.
So that I have really learned from Marx, especially from the young Marx. So that has helped me a lot because many of my books, let's say Mukabila, or say for example Marx, Foucault and Ruhaniyat, Marx, Foucault and spirituality, all this book was based on my critical reading of Marx and at the same time my critical reading of Islam and critical reading of Bangladesh history.
I would like to know more about your understanding of Islam and Ruhaniyat. What does it play in current Bangladeshi context?
You can say it's a translation of the word spirit. Okay. In English, the way the word used, or even the German word, we don't use the word same way in Bangladesh. So, the spirit, we think is something is very non-material. Something it is very non-worldly sort of thing, okay?
Yes.
But in Islam also, the Ruhaniyat, which is in a certain sense very close translation of spirit, but it has another meaning of it. Ruhaniyat is not only the spirit, but it also proposes a reclaiming a subjectivity that is free from the existing reality. I'll just tell you by criticizing Marx, and then you can find why this word is very meaningful. So, if you read Marx, the Marx would always say that that our economic base or economic relation determines our thinking. It's all good, fine. This is acceptable. I think the Marx is right. But if it is so then there is no possibility of thinking differently if you want to change the economic relation. And here I think that a serious problem of Marx lies. a serious problem. Like if you think that our ideas are being formed by economic relationship, so we can never think independent of economic relationships. How we can change the economic relation? Economic transformation is not possible. So economic transformation can happen only objectively, only as a natural process.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So economical world is nothing but the continuation of the biological world. That's what you get, that kind of conclusion. So you reduce subjectivity as a kind of an economic agency only, or something which has some kind of, let's say, economic category, nothing more than that. So that was disturbing me a lot. But I found, when I was reading Islam, I discovered there's some very fascinating proposition in Islam. One proposition which is called you have to submit to Gaib. Very interesting, okay? So in Islam, you don't have a conception of faith the way you have a notion of faith in Christianity. The Islam, the most fundamental issue is submission. Okay?
Submission to unknown.
Submission to the unknown. Submission to something which is absent.
Yes.
See the word Gaib. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ.
Yes.
That means those people who submit themselves to the Gaib. The Gaib does not exist.
It does not exist. Yeah.
It's absent. So you are submitting to the absence, to nothing. Why? To reclaim your subjectivity as a spiritual being. So you submit your nafsaniyat,
Earthly desires.
earthly desires and everything to this Gaib to reclaim your spiritual subjectivity. It's a beautiful contribution which Islam has brought. Okay? Muhammad has brought to us. And that has opened my eyes. I was shattered. And I thought, then obviously historically I had to read why, say, for example, Gaib had been collapsed into a notion of faith. Obviously, because Islam was trying to copy the Christianity. So obviously it collapsed into faith. So in Islam, there is no contradiction between faith and knowledge. Because if Islam meant that you are a subject who have already submitted your nafsaniyat or your worldly desire to Allah, that you have to regain back your spiritual desire, a subjectivity which is not worldly. So you see a solution to Marx. So Islam is a solution what Marx has failed. That's what I've discovered.
Yes.
Okay, this is my philosophy. And so obviously I was very joyous. I was really very happy. And I tried to, for example, reshape my ideas. I tried to read more deeply into Quran, more deeply into Hadith, more deeply into my own histories. And then obviously I noticed hardly any good Marxist history has been written on Islam. Partly because, Marx didn't know much about Islam. Marx and Engels, they didn't know much about Islam. So you can't blame them. So all their life, they have a profound contribution. So obviously they don't have that much time. And they grew up in a Christian milieu, it's the Christian environment, in the Western environment, it's a Greco-Christian environment they grew up. So obviously their conception of religion is a Christian religion. So it's Christianity, they took it for granted. This is the general notion of religion. But Islam is not like Christianity. Islam is very different than Christianity, or for that matter, Judaism. So you have to read Islam with its specificity, how it is different than other Semitic religions. So that's how I started and rediscovering, a lot of things within Islam. And then that also prompted me, it's not, I shouldn't say that prompted me, but I was also, at the same time, I was also trying to understand the popular philosophies of our people, rural people, not that urban, not the westernized urban middle class. So I was very much interested of Fakir Lalon Shah. So I was also a disciple of a guru from Fakir Lalon Shah's, his Gharana, or from his school. He was a very famous person, Fakir Laban Shah, okay? So
Fakir Laban Shah.
Fakir Laban Shah.
Laban Shah. Yeah.
He has another name, Fakir Abdul Rabb. He is more known in his, in his locality as Fakir Abdul Rabb. Usually in Bengal's spiritual tradition, when a great man dies, then he is usually known by the name given by his guru. So his guru was Kokil Shah, so Kokil Shah gave him a name Lalon Shah.
What's your name?
It's still secret.
Okay, it's still.
But you'll know. Obviously, when I pass, you'll know my name as well, of course. So that means my disciples will know my name, and they have to address me by that name, not my biological name.
Uh-huh.
So these are some of the tradition. It's sweet. It's very sweet, and also it develops a certain kind of a bondage. That bondage is very important too, because in our spiritual tradition, we don't believe that knowledge or the wisdom actually passes through books, because books can't speak. If you ask a question to the book can't give you back the answer.
Yes.
So knowledge always passes through living human being.
It has to be interactive.
It must be interactive. And it always passes through living human beings. Okay.
Well, nowadays with the advent of AI and generative AI, it might not be the case in the future.
AI, obviously, from the beginning, spiritual tradition, and will not accept AI, because AI will never be able to catch up with the human intrusion. Okay. AI will always remain as a tool, which is okay. I have no problem on that. But any idea that AI is going to control the human being, human intelligence for that matter, with all the faculties that human beings have, which I still doubt. I'm not very convinced. Well, I'm reading both sides, but I'm not very convinced about it. But anyway, for my own schooling and my more understanding, what I saw is very clearly that in Fakir Lalon Shah particularly, when they claim that knowledge or the wisdom passes through living human beings, so Guru is someone who must be alive. Okay? So in your time, in the epoch you live, there must be a Guru that he is interpreting your time.
I see.
Okay, this is very important, the notion of Guru in Fakir Lalon Shah's tradition. Guru is someone who has all the answers of his time. Okay, and he is a living person.
It's just one person, or there can be multiple?
There can be one person. It can be two. So to the extent you have developed yourself, you will find obviously that kind of Guru. So it also depends a lot on your own development, on your own search. So I was searching myself. I was trying to improve myself. I was trying to learn more. And when I'm learning, so obviously I came across a person whom I thought he's interesting, and he can actually, I can ask many questions, and any questions I ask him, he always answers back with a very fascinating way that actually gives me joy, not only joy, that also gives me an assurance that I progressed, that I've certain kind of spiritual development happened because of this interaction, the dialogue.
Yes.
So that's what the Guru is. So it's very important to understand that Guru is not simply teacher. And Guru is not something so-called tantric gurus and things. This is not what Fakir Lalon Shah actually.
It's a mentor.
Doctor. It's difficult to say that it was a mentor. Guru is someone with whom we are always in dialogue. It's a living dialogue within. And through the discourse, you go one step forward. So Guru is something like a Socrates. Okay, all right? You can never claim that you have the truth. Why? Because your life is limited or paused by death. So you are not eternal. You are not beyond time and place. So you can never claim that I have the last truth. Only you can say you are in the flow of truth. Okay, all right. So this is something like Ake bohe ananto dhara, tumi ami nang davara bhaver pare. Is the same one, okay, through which the knowledge is always flowing. Whether it is in Pratyay's name or it is in Farhad Mazhar's name, it is irrelevant. So somebody, this wisdom is always flowing through some living person. So try to find him. If you can find him, then engage in dialogue with him, and obviously he will, cross our threshold of your time. Yeah, you'll be able to cross the epoch of your time, and you will obviously be able to contribute to the extent your epoch has been matured. Your time or your place is to the extent they're mature, you will be able to contribute to them. So, for example, no matter what I do, I'll never be able to contribute the way Marx has contributed. Because Marx is the product of the Greco-Christian philosophy. is at a peak after Hegel he came. So obviously he has much more advantage than a poor person like Farhad. So obviously I belong to this tradition. So I have to start with from where my community has lost the path. Okay, so I have to start from Lalon. Why my community has lost the path? Because of colonialism.
Yes.
Because of imperialism, because of Western domination. But I have to patiently, obviously, to go back and in a way to tie uh, my novel, okay, on my body with the bodies of my saints or with the wisdom of my saints, the living wisdom of my saints. So they are still there. They're still singing. They're still talking. They're still preaching. So you must be with them. And that is my another aspect of my life. So you can say there's two things. One is a revolutionary who strongly believe in Marx and also
Equality of people.
no, equality is something is a very Bourgeois notion. I don't believe in equality of people. I'll explain to that later on. So that means I am. So you have to remain on that on that register of Marx, and then you have to develop your own critique of Marx and use Marx in a way that you understand, which is useful to your own community. And secondly, you begin with Fakir Lalon, or from that point where your community lost their way because of the colonialism and imperialism. So this is me.
When you say that one has to go through a living guru, living mentor, or living embodiment of knowledge to upgrade your threshold of knowledge and understanding of the reality. But we are, as living beings, we are limited. We can, like, if you are my guru, you can only like teach 20, 30 people. So what happens to the other people? Like, isn't this kind of turning into esoteric knowledge that only a mentor can pass on to his disciple?
No, this will depend on your own search. Say, for example, if you're really interested in knowledge, so if you're really interested in knowledge, so you'll go either to some universities. So you listen to your teacher. So your teacher is also a living guru. So we don't romanticize the word guru. Guru is a very beautiful, very it's a loaded word. It's very meaningful. This is metaphoric. And it's not only metaphoric, it's really very rich concept. So like say your teacher is also your guru. Because obviously you are interacting with him in living fashion. At least if you could become wise by reading book, why go to school? Very simple. Okay, all right. We need knowledge is impossible without the living person, without the living interaction, without some kind of dialogue. Because human beings are the social beings. Human beings are not some kind of Robinson Crusoe. You throw them out, still they become very wise. Impossible, okay? They're all a social being. So in the society, obviously, that we forget that at the end of the day, actually, we have been inspired by some living individual, either our father, our mother, our parents, or some wise person in a village, or some professor in a university.
Or just the prophet?
No, not prophet is dead. So I said that the Bengal will not accept that. So Bengal Guru tradition will not accept that. Bengal Guru tradition will insist that what your guru are interpreting about your prophet. That's the more important.
Okay.
সবাই বলে নবী নবী নবীকে নিরঞ্জন ভাবি দিল ধরিলে জানতে পাবি আহমদ নাম কারে বলে. So they will give you different kind of answer. So what you write in books is irrelevant. But what your guru is teaching you about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's more important. Because he has achieved a certain stage of knowledge by which he can understand better than you. And he's understanding better than you. You will understand that by listening to him. But how you'll understand by listening to him? Simply because you are the same mind what he has. So you have the same faculties what your guru has. So obviously, when two same people are conversing with each other, so it will automatically take, you'll automatically realize that what he's saying it's saying sense. Or he is provoking some of your imagination which you haven't imagined before. Okay, all right. Or he may have he may have incited you with some kind of pleasure. Okay, some kind of, which in Bengal we call Rosh.
Josh.
Okay, some kind of what you can say, some a very pleasant feeling. It's some aesthetic experience which you haven't experienced elsewhere. Okay, so the guru is very important. So don't underestimate the notion of guru, especially as it's been developed in the Bengal. It's very, very powerful notion. Okay, so guru is also teacher, but this guru is the teacher also in the Sanatana Dharma. No problem. But you can accept guru as a teacher, fine. But in Lalon's tradition, guru is more than a teacher. So that's why he's a lover too. Okay, all right? Because he's a lover and you're a son to him. Okay, that's why the guru don't prefer to have their own children. Yes. Okay. Their disciples are their children. So they don't like to have any other biological children, simply because of that, but no other reason. Okay. There are many of the stories you'll hear from other people, but that's not the truth. They don't want to have any children simply because they would love their disciple just like their own son or their own daughters. So these are the differences. So this is something which I've learned from my own experience, from my own.
You were saying that in Bangladesh, in our culture, we have Islam, and that kind of pushed you to learn more about Islam so you can connect to the people over here.
My concern was people, not Islam first.
Yes. So I would like to know more about that, because when we see Hegel, that derived from Christianity, the history of philosophy. And over here, we have the Eastern philosophies that's kind of different than the Western. So would you like to go into some length into that? What's the difference between Western philosophy and Eastern and Islamic philosophy, and why you want to use it or use the power of Islamic philosophy to connect to the people over here?
Now, first of all, okay, let me answer that last part was, that's very important. First of all, obviously, in Bangladesh, we are fighting to develop a radical politics which should be effective, which should be very culturally specific, and secondly, which must unite the people against, number one, fascism, number two, fascist power, number three, fascist states. So that was my premise, political premise. So if I want to fight it back, then I obviously have to fight it back with the language which my people can understand.
For our audience, would you care to explain the differences between the fascist power, fascist state?
Okay. So don't forget that what we're discussing.
No, I'll bring it up.
Okay, first of all, fascism is an ideology. Fascism is ideology. It's not simply populism. Many people say populism is same thing as fascism.
Tyranny of populists.
Populism is, of course, there is a sense in saying that populism also breeds fascism. But populism and fascism is not the same thing. Fascism starts on when we start claiming the truth. Say, I have a certain ideas. And if I start claiming that my idea is the truth.
No debate.
And no debate. And I will try to impose my truth upon you.
Yes.
Politically or by force or for whatever reason. And I'm not engaging with any kind of dialogue. And that's what's called the fascism. Okay, all right? So any ideology can become very fascist. No matter what. Even liberalism can become fascist.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Even say, for example, obviously, any religious ideas can become very fascist. So that's why, despite the very positive aspect of Bengali nationalism in terms of the culture, in terms of its affinity to their own language, claiming the sphere of language as the sphere to develop your own spirit. These are very important. Obviously, we dwell in our own language, in the mother tongues. So these are the very fundamental contributions of the Bengali nationalism. But when Bengali nationalism starts claiming that this is the only truth, Islam has no truth in Bengali nationalism, then India has become fascism. So it can become fascist against the Muslim communities. So they have to erase the Islam and Islamic cultures or Islamic values or Islamist philosophical proposition or Islamist political proposition, from the basis of so-called Bengali secularism or Bengali nationalism. That is a problem. So similar thing can happen when you want to use Islam as a nationalist ideology. When you say, Amra Musliman Rekta Jati.
We came from Abraham.
আমরা এটা জাতি।
Yes.
Abraham, that's you're talking about Abraham religion. That's a little bit better. But when you say আমরা মুসলমান একটা জাতি, so we're different from other communities. Okay, so you are cultivating a nationalism based on religion. But Islam does not approve any form of nationalism. So you don't even know that you are really contradicting Islam. So Islam is not nationalist. It doesn't believe that you have curved the world into different countries with the different boundaries. Islam will not approve it because this so-called boundary has been created by human beings. Why should I abide by it? Let's say in the United States, the white people went there first and occupied the land of the Indians. It doesn't mean that United States have a so-called political boundary and I have to accept this all my life. So Islam, obviously there is a pan-Islamic, the worldly, pan-Islamic, a global vision. But it doesn't mean Islam will allow you to go and occupy the land of universities. That's a different thing altogether. Yeah. But the question is this, that we are, as children of Adam, the world belongs to us, all of us. And there are many diverse, communities, diverse languages, diverse cultures. And Islam claims that these diverse cultures, these diverse communities are the beauty. And God has created this diversity so that we, human beings, can know each other and learn more and keep on our discourse as a human being and enrich ourselves as a human species. So it's a very powerful ideology if you read it, Islam in that way. So, yeah, I forgot your question again.
Ideology is all well and good, but in practice, we have seen right after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the 4 caliphs that came first, they expanded the territories in the name of Islam, and that became a nationalist agenda. They were using jihad as a way of expanding the borders and creating an empire. So in practice, there is a certain difference we can see from the philosophy of Islam that is global or universal, isn't it?
No, not true. But at the same time, when you're simplifying a little bit, okay. First of all, Islam grew in a tribal religion, okay, all right. And the massive contribution of Islam, uniting the tribes, and constituting them a kind of identity as a Muslim which transcend the tribal identities or localized identity is already a revolution. All right. And later on, we saw the Islamic empire partly because already the global reality has entered the phase of empires. So Islam also become one of the empires. So that is a different, history or a different reality that we need to discuss separately than what I'm discussing with you. I'm discussing now mainly Islam as an ideology and how Islam as an ideology is actually contributes to our understanding of spirituality, and spirituality, how we regain this spirituality as reclaiming our subjectivity after the submission. That's what I'm simply explaining to you.
Yes.
That point. Okay. So if you remain in that point, remain focused, then you would also know that why, for example, in Bengal's tradition, we have to again link Islam and also pre-Islamic philosophical development, let's say Tantrics, Buddhists, Hindu, Jains. So there is all this kinds of tradition. So Islam came from Arabs and transformed the local societies. And at the same time, it has also transformed itself. So there is a form of Islam, which you saw in Bengal, is very different than, say, for example, you see in Middle East. Okay, all right. So in the Bengal in Islam has a very, 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 very distinctive character. Very distinctive character. And that not only it's a distinctive character, it has produced a great thinker like Fakir Lal Shah. Not only in school. It's not that Sufism came and we have a Naqshbandi here, Surawardi here, Chishtiya here, Qadariya there. No, they are still there. Yes. But in Bengal, Islam has also produced Fakir Lal Shah.
And you were saying that you were interested to find the philosophy of Islam so you can connect with people.
Right. So my whole journey is how I could keep myself connected with my people. So I had to discover language. I had to discover a new way of thinking without, for example, denying the West. So I don't believe in so-called East-West binary. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was young, I had a zeal to oppose West because, of course, I'm a victim of imperialism. I'm a victim of colonialism. So I have that political sentiment in me, which is very clear. But I don't, for example, succumb to this binary of East and West. So my search is universal. But whatever I'm searching in philosophy or Islam is always something which is universal, is good for all of us globally. And that's what the Ummah is. That's the Ajay really asks. Ummah is not, there's nothing on Muslim Ummah. It's wrong. There's only the Ummah, the unity of the spiritual beings.
I can totally see that you picked up Islam, the philosophy of Islam, so you can connect with the people. But why did you want to connect with the people? What's your political philosophy?
But that's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to connect with not only Islam, I wanted to connect with my people. That was the main objective. My people, anyway, the working class, obviously, peasantry, okay? That's very, very important. And also the lower middle class, the upper class in general, and the Bangladeshi people in general as well, because they're also suffering from neoliberal economic policy, corporate war, and all this sort of global capitalism and other sorts of things. So obviously, I had to create a political program for my people. It's as simple as that. Then, when I'm creating this political program, a political vision from my people, then I had to solve very certain issues, very straightforward way. One is the binary between the secularism and so-called religious Islam. Okay, that we to resolve. So that is another way for me to relegating in Islam, because I don't believe in so-called secularism as it is been propagated in the West, or so-called secular world, or so-called secularism is something worldly. Okay.
Something different.
Something worldly only. I'm explaining to you. Something only worldly, something only material, as we often we get confused with. Let's say we talk about materialism, or some of the Marx, then I don't believe in so-called materialism of Marx. Not in a very vulgar sense. See, Marx was also very critical of the vulgar materialism. So obviously I had to invent, or I had to, for example, rethink Marx in a way that how he weighed fireworks, for example, and how he understood the materialism. So I mean, if you ask me a question, I think I'm a Marxist, out and out. I haven't lost my route and I have not lost my path. Only difference is this: Marx grew up in the Christian world. I grew up in Islamic world. So I have apparently my position may look different, but end of the day, it is the teaching of Marx that is guiding me in finding my historical texts.
As you said, that there is only one ummah. It doesn't have to be Muslim ummah. There is only one ummah. And in Medina, we see that there were Christian people, Jewish, and the local tribes. They were all part of the ummah.
It's a part of the ummah, of course.
Yes.
So part of the ummah. So then one day all people will, let's say, Islam is a political religion in a sense that, let's say, if I say that you want to worship one idol, I'm going to worship one idol, another person is going to one idol. So you can never be united.
Yeah.
So that's why Islam actually propose a political monotheism. It's very different than, let's say, Judaism and Christianity. We often forget that. So, but we'll need a lot of time to discuss that from Islamic theological part of it. Islam is a political religion with very much rich in critical thinking, very much rich in spiritual, understanding. So, and also a form of monotheism. It is very unique. Okay, which you can reduce them into classical monotheisms. Okay, that was what my finding is. Okay, we can talk about it more and can discuss it more. So my critique of Islam this way helped me pave the way for me to search for what should be the correct political line for my people. Okay, because it must be anti-imperialist, it must be anti-colonial, and at the same time, it must be emancipatory. Emancipatory not only in economic sense, emancipatory in philosophical sense, emancipatory in spiritual sense. And that's what me. That's what I'm really searching for. When I say the Islam, so I'm talking about the emancipatory aspect of Islam that is a part and parcel of the revolutionary subjective of the Bangladeshis. This has nothing to do with the Jamatis or for that matter or any other so-called theological Islam or so-called identitarian Islam either. It's a kind of universal approach to community building, universal approach to revolutionary changes, and universal approach to building your community in a way so that it becomes equal. It becomes a kind of a symbol globally for everyone to follow. It's not that something I'm proposing to become an Islamic Bangladesh or Islamic so-called society. This is not what my purpose is. My purpose is to reinvent the revolutionary proposition of Islam, which we saw came before 40, 100 or 15 years ago, and translate that teaching to the need of our present time.
I totally understand where you're coming from now. What would differentiate this ideology that you're thinking of that everyone should follow or for everyone to follow from fascism? Because if we enforce everyone to follow one certain doctrine, that becomes fascism, right?
Oh, definitely, I fully agree with you. So obviously, I will never say that this is the truth, and you follow me is the truth. So if I have any truth, it will be only proved by contributing to the emancipatory struggle of my people. Not the theoretical truth when I'm telling to you. If that is, right now, what I'm saying, I can see the practical value of it because it is dissolving the binary between the secular and the religious.
Yes.
That unites us against the fascism, against the fascist power. Because our present task is to dissolve this binary that may come from the Islamic background in Bangladesh. You may come from Jamati, you may be Shibir, say, for example, or someone can become a ML, Marxist-Leninist, or someone may be a simple secular nationalist. So we are all together. We are all suffering from the fascism of Sheikh Hasina. So we have to remain united. And that unity, we can build it only by dissolving the binaries between the religion and, say, for example, secularism. That's the present task. So I'm translating my ideas again into very pragmatic political tasks that we have to unite it against the fascism, fascist power, and the fascist state. So that is what Muslim. That is the basis of our unity, and that is the basis of defining Janagon, basis of defining people. When you say the people's sovereignty, we are actually proposing the sovereignty of the people who are fighting against fascism, fascist power.
What's your vision for the state of Bangladesh? How do you see the state governing the people? How do you see the people, the constituent people? And how can we translate it globally?
Okay, first of all, as someone is very much interested in Islam's proposition, so I don't believe in any state, because in Islamic perspective, state is a parasitic, institution. Secondly, state is parasitic from Marx's point of view, as you know. Okay, but state is so obviously Islamic state is impossible. I mean, it is. We should not go for Islamic state at all. Okay, but this is not our Islamic objective. It can't be an Islamic objective. So Islamic objective can be right now is a kind of ethico legal society, ethico legal society that can protect the oppressed. Okay, all right. We can't, for example, dissolve the state right now, but we have to develop ethico-legal society, very strong in ethical values, very strong in democratic values as well. Obviously, when I say ethical values, I include democratic values as well, and recognition of the dignity of other human being. Okay, all right. His freedom and dignity both. Okay, so this also we draw from history of Bangladesh as well. So in Bangladesh's history, if we go in the 1971 proclamation of independence, we have we have some equality, human dignity, and justice. So these three are also all of them are also Islamic concepts. So first, our task is integrating this proclamation of independence into our political project. That's our task. And that we have done. You have seen that right now, more or less, most of the political parties has accepted that proclamation of independence is very important for us. And this can be the basis of our unity. Because this is a proclamation of independence. So this also brings us back to the roots of our independence movement, and we get united on this particular kind of document. And then we reject the 1972 Constitution. The 1972 Constitution was imposed upon us. So 1972 Constitution was imposed in a way that that Constitution was been drawn by Army leaders who are actually elected for the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan.
East Pakistan. Yeah.
Constituent Assembly of Pakistan. So they are being elected from East Pakistan.
Yes.
Okay. So, but they came back and claimed that they are the one who must form the Constituent Assembly, which they can't. Okay. Because in Bangladesh, after it has earned its freedom. Okay. So obviously we must have a new Constituent Assembly. So they have denied us that right.
Yes.
So what I'm saying now is that 1970 Constitution is obviously a constitution imposed by us by Pakistanis. So we can't accept this. We must throw it out. So no negotiation with 1970 Constitution. But we own 1971 freedom struggle and accept proclamation of independence. So this is our way of reclaiming our independence struggle. Not to be anti-independent, as sometimes people, claim that they are against 1972, which is total nonsense. So we are actually reclaiming 1972 properly. That means we are reclaiming the principles of proclamation of independence. To establish that principles, we gave our lives. So that is our my main protest now. And it seems that it has worked, obviously. So it is more or less there is a popular consensus in here. But we have failed because after the mass insurgents, we have failed to form ourselves into a constituent power that can declare themselves as the new government with full power of interim government. And that power would, for example, would give us the authority to start the process of constituting to start the constituting process for a new constitution. Okay, all right. Not the way it has been done right now. Okay. Now what they've done is this: we take all this a kind of counter revolution. Is a constitutional counter revolution. Why? Because they haven't dissolved the constitution of 1972. The fascist constitution is still there.
Yes.
So the present regime has taken a oath to protect this 72 constitution, which is fascist constitution, with this 15th Amendment. So they are protecting it. Okay, all right. So obviously we can't support with this government, with this interim government, who are not really even legally valid. Because even in the present constitution, there is no clause by which this regime can claim itself valid, legally valid. So it's a kind of a hodgepodge kind of situation. Okay, so obviously I rejected this. This is not the outcome that we have envisaged. So, but we are lost. So you have to accept that we are lost. This first bout. That okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
let me just interject a little bit. Like when you grow up in an orphanage, or maybe you grow up in a family and you always known your father, this is your father. But now that we figure out that that person is not our father, we must find our own origin, right? So we have to build our constituent assembly. We have to build a new constitution. But once we have that constitution, I would just like to know, what's your philosophy about the state? You said that you don't believe in a state as it's accepted in the normal way. But what would the governance be like?
No. When I say, I think, let me correct.
Yeah.
When I say within Islam, there is not a notion of state.
There is none.
That's
Yes.
very important. Okay. But we are also so obviously, but you cannot realize a Islam that I'm talking about. No. Okay. No, you need state not as a state. You need a popular sovereignty as a form of political power. Okay? This is very important for you to understand. So, what I'm now fighting for is a popular sovereignty as a form of political power. For what? To fight back against the global capital. So, unless I have that power, I cannot rebuild my economy.
No.
I can protect my environment. I can protect my ecology. I can protect my women. Protect, I mean to say, the kind of the violence they
Yes.
are going through from patriarchy, not only the feudal patriarchy, capitalist patriarchy, but the capitalist patriarchy as well. So I will not be able to, for example, protect our people from the assault of global capital unless I have a state. So state to me is not the so-called classical state as we sometimes we assume. Okay, all right. So obviously this state will not copy the so-called Western national state. It may or may not. We don't know. Or maybe our struggle will may not end up only in the emancipation of the Bangladeshi people. It may engulf, it may include the many other small states, let's say northeastern states, or for that matter even West Bengal, for that matter even Myanmar. It can become a very big, political community. So our rallying call is a political community. So right now, the people who are fighting against fascism are the emerging political communities. Okay, this is the emerging political community. This political community will have to lead to become more broader political communities. What does the political communities means? It means that we can have many diverse nations, no problem. We can have many diversity. We can have many different even indigenous communities. Bangladeshis can be there, or even Biharis could be there. Even this, for example, for in the whole region, it can become other communities as well. Let's say next to our border. Okay, so this is something for the future. Will tell us what is possible. But at least if Bangladesh, we can make, if we succeed and come up with a form of governance, this is what the state is now.
Yes.
Okay, a form of governance by which we can protect our economy and go implement policies that will very quickly, help us to develop ourselves and protect our rivers, protect our waters, protect our forests, and protect our resources. So obviously, we like to catch up with the West, with the Europe, as quickly as possible. So our task will be an economic revolutionary transformation that will create a economic progress, a economic transformation based on, grounded on ecological philosophy, grounded on on protecting the planetary health of our globe,
Yes.
and
Prana-Prokrit.
and grounded on Prakriti, and grounded on developing relation with other communities as well, and to become bigger. So this is our only options. So in this struggle, our struggle will be with big corporations versus the people. Okay, so we must not become a lonely
Mm.
community in Bangladesh. We must relate with, say, for example, the people in the USA fighting for the Palestinians.
Yes.
So we are part of them. We are part of their soul as well. So we have to imagine a bigger world, a bigger political communities where we are fighting hand in hand to bring forth the collapse of global capital. Because in the era of capital now, the notion of the so-called nation is a nonsense. It's a hollow concept. Because state can't protect itself. State simply becomes an instrument of exploitation, instrument of self-expansion and accumulation of global capital. So state is not going to protect me in any way. State will simply claim that I am going to protect you from terror, and so they will simply reduce the state into.
The market will decide.
Okay, so they'll simply transform the state into a security state. So we have to focus on two notions. Okay, one is that means the political power of the political community. So one is that we need the power. So when I talk the power, I don't mean that simply a very raw power. I mean education as well. I mean knowledge as well. Knowledge is power as well. So we have to earn knowledge, transfer of technology, transfer of ideas, and develop our imagination very fast. Okay, so we need, first of all, uh, become powerful in a sense that we have to understand power differently. So we must be powerful. So we need power. So that's what I call the political power. That political power is obviously, as I've explained to you, is based on wisdom, technology, and at the same time military power as well. It doesn't mean that we will not have a very strong, powerful military. Of course, we need a very powerful military. Secondly, is the governance, as we are familiar with. So we need a kind of a governance which is very much decentralized. It can't be city-based. It can't be similar in Dhaka city. It must be decentralized governance system. Okay, as we always say, আমরা স্থানীয় সরকার ব্যবস্থা বলি না আমরা. So we must. Okay, maybe we can divide the country 4, 5, 6, or 8, whatever it is, whatever is suitable. And it must be divided, as I envisage, from ecological cartography, not that political, not administrative. So you have to divide the geography in a way so that we can have a ecosystem in one geographical area, not simply administrative way, so that we can manage this ecosystem by the way we are dividing our local governments. These are very, very important. Okay, so we must to get out of the colonial way of administrative the division of a society. So this will also, also show us where should we focus our energies. Okay, so our energies will be, for example, number one, economic development with a very strong ecological grounding, grounding. Okay,
Sustainable.
I don't want to use the word some sustainable. It's again capitalism as it is with some kind of sustainable word. No. We need an economic development which is grounded in ecology and environment. Okay, all right? Right. So this is number one. Number two, we need a very powerful education system. So we must, for example, internalize the Western technology and knowledge critically, appropriate critically. What is good for us and what is bad for us. We must, distinguish and appropriate the best, what is good for us. And number three is our cultural movement. So my focus is very much on the cultural movement. And so as I was addressing to you the issue of Islam and forget Lalon and other, all these things is very much integral to my idea of culture. So that will be a major focus for me to work with politically. So I must take up culture as a political area where we have to do lots of work so that we can dissolve all kind of false binaries. And actually, people can understand the real binary globally is very simple. It's capital and the people. They should understand this capital and the people. Okay, all right. So the false god, which is the capital, must go. False god must go. And the real spirituality must be reestablished in the heart of the people. And that's the message of Islam.
Only then we can coexist and have peace.
Right. No, it is a global project. It can't be a local project. Okay.
What's the governing model do you suggest? Because I have seen you in your recent discussions that you are saying the republic only gives sovereignty to the parliament or to the president, and democracy gives sovereignty to the people. So would you care to explain the difference?
So many people are simply confusing us with so-called the word republic. Remember, it's a Roman word. It's a Roman republic. Roman republic means it's a kind of okay, very, very simply, so people can understand. It's again kingship, but king is been elected by vote.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the difference.
Pretty much.
Okay, all right. But obviously, many of the modern republic has many elements of democracy. Okay, because democracy means mass insurgency. Mass insurgency expresses the popular sovereignty, popular will of the people. So democracy is grounded on the popular will. This is the fundamental difference. So that popular will be practiced in constituting the new state, it will be practiced as a constituting process. It will be practiced as formulating economic policies. It will be practiced as a governing principles, determining governing principles, where people can directly participate in these kinds of decisions. So there is a fundamental difference between the democracy and the republic. In the democracy, there'll be votes, of course. Okay, but because 17 we have 17 crore people, so obviously everybody cannot take decisions in one single room. So there may be representative, but in democracy, focus is always direct participation of the people in all the affairs of the state. So this is the ideal situation.
Yes.
So we have to try to achieve this ideal situation. So our local government will be run by the people who can, say, for example, may meet every Friday in the Jummah prayer
Yes.
and take the decisions on everything, on their local environment, on their agrarian problems, on what they're going to cultivate in the seasons, or any kind of violence which has taken place in the village, in the unions. So they can easily do this. So there can be, either a secular union council,
Mhm.
or even say religious mux, or the religion becomes a part of the society's building, because you can't make that binary between religious and secular, because as every religion man has a secular life as well. So we have to rethink, we have to innovate, we have to do a lot of things in experimenting what works and what doesn't work. So right now we have to educate our people. That is my task right now. That education will aim at, for example, in contributing to the construction of the constituting power. That is fundamental right now. That the people must must realize that they must constitute themselves as constitutive power, and once they uh, reclaim themselves as a political subject who are capable of constituting themselves into a polity, then we can talk about what form the state we like to build up. But it must come from the people. It mustn't come from Farhad's blueprint. It must come from the people, because that is the whole idea of democracy. But democracy means people must come up with their own imagination, own ideas, and we must discuss, and we must find out the best what is coming from our people. So this is what I call the democracy. So you can see that democracy and the republic, there is a difference, very, very clear differences. So I reject the concept of the so-called second republic. It's a nonsense, total nonsense. Third, there is another concept which is still available in our Bangladesh. It's called the so-called parliamentary sovereignty. So it's a nonsense. Parliamentary sovereignty is another way of taking away the sovereign power of the people to the parliament.
Exactly.
So I didn't believe in it. So there will be no parliament will never be sovereign. It's the people who are always sovereign. So it's a popular sovereignty or people's sovereignty that is going to guide the principle of formation of the political power of our next coming democratic Bangladesh. This is my politics very clearly.
When you say that democracy is essentially popular insurgents or something like that,
Popular
sovereignty, yeah.
because insurgency happens only. Insurgency is the real expression of the popular sovereignty.
So
So obviously,
we are seeing the Mazhars being broken down, torn up. So my real question is, if there is any check and balance put in place to protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority, how can we attain democracy and still have a functioning state? Or
but we are not talking about a liberal democracy. See,
no, we're not.
you're pulling me back to different kind
I'm
of.
just trying to understand.
But the issue is this: if you have a popular sovereignty, so that means you're enabling the Mazhar people as well. You are enabling the Sanatan Dhammalambulis as well, isn't it? Because what does the popular sovereignty mean? The Mazhar people as a people, so they have their own sovereign power to decide what should be their religion, how they would like to practice it. You cannot do something just simply imposing your ideas on it. So as I say, democracy means always conversation, always exchange ideas among the people. So we believe that if we can practice that kind of democracy, that means we protect the right to speak, right for demonstration, right for assembling, and all this kind of democratic practices, obviously many of these problems will be gone. Because whenever the people become empowered, so that right-wing fascism or the religious fascism will go. It can exist. It can exist. But there will be many diverse way people may be practicing, maybe organizing their societies, and this is fine. I think, say, for example, the people in Noakhali may organize differently than the people in Kushtia, say, for example. It's quite possible. It's quite possible. So we have to accept the diversity, and that's what the democracy is. Because whenever you empower the people, so people will decide how they would like to live, how they use their own religious institution, their secular education institution, their cultural institution. So these are the institutions that we have to build. So only religious institutions going to dominate over the other institutions. It may not happen, or a completely different thing can happen. They say, for example, we can imagine a world, imagine a Bangladesh where we have the masjid, and where is also a cultural center. A masjid, which is a center for learning, which is also a school, which is also a university, where people are having their study circle, or in the evening or at night there are small cafes. All intellectuals are going there. Imagine that kind of Bangladesh. Okay, we have to imagine that Bangladesh, that where there is no separation between religion or so-called secular. If you want to just perform the religious akidah, it's perfectly fine. We love you. This is something which your religion tells you to do. If you don't, still it's fine. But then you have to have certain ethical values. You have to have certain ethical values that someone is performing their religious practices. You simply can't derogate their position. You can simply, as for example, dominate over them. You simply can take away his right, political rights, a democratic rights and other. Okay, is it
But
clear?
how can you make the people understand that you cannot take away people's right? Because in Bangladesh, as we see in general, the Islamists, so-called Islamists, they kind of preach to take away rights from others. It's
Only,
not.
I got your point. Only by education. There is no shortcut. One thing I like to say very clearly, it must be solved through education. There is no other alternative. You can't do it by force. You can do it only by law. Maybe law is necessary. Like, for example, those people who are breaking the mazhar. Okay, all right. So you can, put them into prison. Okay, because obviously the existing
That there was
criminal
a-
laws.
Yes.
You can bring suit against them in the existing criminal law. But that is not going to change your society. If we are really serious in changing your society, education and culture is the most important area of politics. This is the two things which we have to work with. Education and culture, education and culture, education and culture. These are two things. This is the only way you can educate your people. And political movement is a fantastic way of educating the people.
I see.
Okay, this is very important. That's why you have to remain in political movement all the time. Mobilization, education, sitting. Okay, many different ways you have to invent so they can educate our masses. Traditional schools and universities will not be able to educate our people. They'll simply will create their colonized minds. So we have no hope in the traditional schools and universities. So whole political process should be nothing but a living educational process. That's the way I have to think about it. We must get rid of the so-called conventional way of thinking about politics. It's nonsense. We will not be able to gain anything by that. We have to concentrate on education, and education is the key. Educating the people is also empowering the people. Once they are educated, you'll be able to. Will not be the kind of apprehensions you have. It will be gone. Because people will obviously don't go and simply break down the mazhar. They may not disagree on many things, which is perfectly fine. Okay, I may not disagree with many things with the secular. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean I'm going to tell them, no, you can't you do this, you can read that book, or you can't do that sort of thing. No, it is. And then for our ethical training, that means I call for the training of our soul or spiritual training, you have to engage in massive cultural activity. There's no shortcut.
In order to do all this, you need to have this power of the state, though,
No,
by your side.
I don't believe it.
Huge amount of funding to educate the people.
No, I don't believe it either.
So how do you do
I
it?
don't believe. I need first of all to convince you that we don't need it.
Please do.
First of all, you came to me. Why?
I'm here because
But we have to start from here.
yes.
We have to start from here and start educating, because I must thank you that you are taking my interview. At least you are giving me, helping me so that I can disseminate ideas. So I go to districts after districts and go and tell people this should be done. Only by preaching in a very old-fashioned way, the way our prophets had done in the past. That's the only way. So without any kind of forcing people to accept your ideas. Because by going to the people, you also educate yourself. Because people will ask you questions and you have to answer those kinds of questions. So don't think that what I'm saying now, Farhad Mazhar, is I am saying that this is a cut and paste kind of formula and it is simply happening. No, I will not say that.
Evolving philosophy.
Huh?
Evolving philosophy.
It's an evolving philosophy, and you must work hard so that you can engage with people. If you engage with people, people are going to engage with you as well. And that's what happened in my case in 2024, isn't it? But others say, for example, why I have suddenly become so, I would say, so in a way that people like me. I'm not saying I'm a very significant person, I'm a very humble person, but at least people come to me and would like to listen to me. It's simply because I listen to people. I give lots of value to someone who may not agree with me, who completely contradictory opinion to me, but then I reflect, something must be wrong in my thinking. So we must go to the people, we must educate them, and we must also be educated ourselves. And through this process, we must transform ourselves and become a community, and become a political community. That's my politics is.
Well, bhai, my last question, where do you see Bangladesh right now? Some people are saying that you have a huge amount of influence over the students that are supposedly in power right now. And where do you see us going? Like, if you are educating people, some are taking notes and some are complying, some are thinking for themselves, but most people aren't. That's the reality. And we are being dragged back into the old political system again. So how do we move from here and educate the whole population, become a constituent power? Yeah.
Okay, one thing I like to give Pratyay, very, very frankly. One is this. What the youth has done is monumental. What they have done is monumental, superbly monumental. Okay, all right? So honestly speaking, I don't have much expectation from them, what they have done already. My analysis is this: we have failed not because our youths have done something wrong. No, we have failed because many of the conceptual, theoretical, intellectual issues we have not been able to address, and we have not been able to educate our youths about that as well. Say, for example, the difference between state and the government. Our young, they still didn't realize there is a difference. State building is a very different kind of process than electing a government to run the state. Okay, all right. This is not clear. So when they succeeded such a grand revolution, so they didn't understand the relation between politics and the law. It's not so easy. So they succumbed to the campaign that you cannot run a state without the law. So they thought that yes, maybe the people who are telling to them that you need to take your oath under the Sheikh Hasina's constitution. So they didn't develop that kind of confidence. These are young people. Just think, they're young people. Most of their age, from 21 to 26. Highest. So these young people, when someone told them and convinced them that, okay, you have to go and take oath under the constitution of Sheikh Hasina. So they've thought, yes, maybe that's what we should have done. So even though they have read my book, even though they have heard me, so they couldn't convince themselves it's really possible. So they didn't develop that kind of confidence. They're saying that today, we, the young people, are taking the power in our hand. And we are the constituent power. And we are the will of the people. We are the sovereign will of the people. And we are taking the state power. And from now on, the Bangladesh will run by our order. So they didn't have that kind of revolutionary audacity. So this is what I've learned. This I've learned from practical experience. You can talk about theoretical about it. This is something. So we have to generate another youths who may come up with that kind of audacity and that kind of authority.
So right now we're doomed. This is not
I
going to
would
go
not say
anywhere.
no. Don't use this kind of.
I'm just trying to figure out.
I think I'm very happy. What I have achieved is I'm very happy with it.
Okay.
I think where we have failed, we have to understand why we have failed and try to correct it, try to develop our understanding, our political understanding, our cultural understanding of it, so that either we can come up with another revolutionary upheaval, or maybe we can go through some kind of transformative, peaceful process. I don't know. This is something we learn it only by practicing. But we definitely have to complete this revolution. So this revolution, that's why I say this revolution or this insurgency is incomplete. This has not been transformed into a revolution. So we must transform the insurgency into the popular revolution so that popular sovereignty can be established, and on the basis of the popular sovereignty, we can design a new democratic Bangladesh.
Awesome. Just a complimentary question. Do you think having an election in this December under the old laws and old constitution is going to take us anywhere, even if the students come to power?
I think no, but we have to definitely oppose it. But we must not oppose it in any way so that we can also, say, for example, make the present government very weak. But I don't think the present government can really offer us, offer us anything more. So so they would like to go for the election because they themselves don't feel very comfortable. Okay, so you can't force them to do what they don't feel themselves comfortable with. So so as a practical person, I accept this. I have no problem. But I will definitely would like to take it forward only through my educational activities, my part chakras, interacting with the youths and learning from what they've learned from this revolution and things like that. So I will definitely stick to the point that we have achieved a lot. And there is definitely we're going through a revolutionary transformation in our consciousness. So a lot of the ideas that I have previously I thought was very difficult to disseminate is much easier will be disseminated now. So I see a good, bright, golden future for Bangladesh. That's for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Farhad bhai.
Thank you.